edition of the Sober Thinkers channel. Thank you guys for tuning in once more with me. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about a subject entitled, When Men Fail to Navigate, the Whole Ship Sinks. Now, I always like to start off relating to things as I once understood them as a youngster. And I'll be the first to admit that as a youngster, I had a very basic idea as to what real manhood entailed, because I was surrounded by many influences that gave me a basic understanding of such as my father, grandfathers, uncles, cousins, as well as a host of men/male figures that had an impact upon me in some way, shape, or form. To me, this is what manhood was, or at least represented or thought it to be. However, it wasn't till I got older, and I do mean older, that I began to see what real and true manhood entailed. And boy, was it completely different from what I had both saw and experienced, both directly and indirectly. Now, on one hand, I saw men coming and going, both to and from work, being at least visible and active within the neighborhoods in which we lived, and had at least some type of standard, although just so happens that the standard in which we had at the time just so happened to fall in the bottom half of things. As it relates to the overall or full spectrum in which standards are to be regarded, but at least there were some. Now, however, within the full spectrum, or within this spectrum, there were some key things lacking from us all, both men and boys. And those were the key and the fundamental foundations upon which manhood is to be built and supposed to be carried on into the future. And as some would ask, what are these fundamental and foundational things and or building blocks? Well, in my honest opinion, the most important values fundamentally are: one, self-respect, which govern having and taking pride in oneself, which allows for one to set the tone for the establishing of some level of standards upon which one measures themselves and or can be measured against. Number two, vision for oneself, something to both thrive in or thrive and strive for, something that has a purpose behind it and pushes one towards a level greater than that of mediocrity, which most of us, including myself, allow ourselves to fall victim to, and pushing beyond that on into something that's transformational for not only ourselves but others as well, if you feel what I'm saying. And three, most importantly, is integrity, which most of us seem to not care anything about, or at least as much as we should. Instead of realizing the value of such an important attribute, which greatly affects just about every aspect of our lives, we choose to opt out and take the lesser route, one that either has or holds no value whatsoever as it relates to the grand scheme of things. It's almost as if we're afraid of embracing this concept of manhood because of what it will require of and from us, which is the overwhelmingly compelling call to grow the hell up, as we're required to as men, forcing us to both behave and think in a manner which holds us accountable for our actions that just so happen to have an effect on everything else as well as everyone. For in this state of manhood, you're not allowed to just linger or waddle along in a state of non-progressive limbo with no type of real productivity, contribution, or asset production that generates interest and helps both society and its people thrive in a manner that can sustain itself for generations to come. For the way I've now come to understand manhood and its key and prime functionalities, I see that it's more of a DNA thing just as much as it's a learned concept. For some people have it and some people don't, you feel me? Likened unto a term I recall hearing over the years that's called, or that's known as the cloth, and what manner of which you're cut from. Is it one of weakness or one of strength? Either way, you're cut from one or the other, and unfortunately, not enough of us over the course of time have shown that we've been cut from the cloth of strength to make the necessary difference that society has called for, to which we can now see the results due to the lack thereof. And make no mistake about it, the manner in which a great deal of our males and men have pretty much turned out, without a doubt, have been by design and have done quite the number on us as well as a whole. And as it's not hard to see, based upon the timeline of the past 60 plus years or so and the events therein that have followed, you can only see, as I've stated before, the systematic breakdown of our society, starting with our men first and foremost as the leaders, the conquerors, the builders, and the tone setters of our society / culture. And it seems as if the men of our culture and society have made a vested interest in valuing everything other than that which pertains to true and authentic manhood, which in a sense has devolved us in many ways, or devalued us in many ways rather. We've taken up ways, behaviors, and tendencies that both weaken our position and subjugate our authority, so much so to the point of almost non-existence. And what's sad about it all, it's not nearly enough of us that seem to even notice or care enough to do anything about it. We've basically handed over our lower extremities to another and watched them all but usurp every ounce of power and authority given unto us by the source from which we've been created in the first place. And the main question we should be asking ourselves is, how the fuck has these things happened or come about to the extent they have? I'll tell you how. This has all happened and befallen of us to the degree it has because men, first and foremost, have taken their eyes off the prize of life and true sustainability. Take, for example, two individuals from a similar and yet two very different backgrounds that just so happen to end up in the same place, economic lifestyle, social status, etc. Ultimately, the top of the food chain, so to speak. Now, the main question is how they get there, their points of origin. Given their points of origin, what is so special about these two men that caused them to excel in the manner in which they have from the bottom to the top, so to speak. And just to be clear, I'm speaking about the two individuals, one known as Michael Jordan and Sean Carter, or Sean Jay-Z Carter, which none of these men I hold on any special pedestal or worship them as idols. I just respect who they are, what they've accomplished, and the seemingly approach or the mindset that seems to be in play with both of these men in similar fashion. Now, it's quite clear when you know what you're looking at and know how it shows itself. Pretty much you can understand what it is happening in the picture. Now, what is it about these two? I'll tell you what. Now, it's all of my opinion, of course, but it seems as if there was a tunnel-like vision focused from the outset, knowing what they wanted and where they wanted to go. Understanding that mediocre was not an option for them, therefore taking it upon themselves to put in the maximum effort, i.e. doing the damn work necessary in order to achieve both scalable and high-level results. Second is mindset, knowing not only themselves, but seemingly being able to quickly recognize the dynamics of their newfound environments and situations, and thus being able to make the necessary adjustments that would prove very and quite beneficial to them and take them to overall success in the long run. Both knowing and or learning who to not only surround themselves with, but also having and utilizing the proper wisdom and discernment as to who to listen to and when, knowing when to speak and when to be silent, recognizing the value of sound advice and wise counsel on things and or matters that they either had no prior knowledge of or on, or would have made decisions that would have proven detrimental to the overall growth of their success story. And even more importantly, being able to discern both who and what needs to be cut out, and that which would have no other beneficial purpose to what they have going on and or are attempting to accomplish, or would serve as an overall hindrance. By being able to do so, to consciously implement these two key decision-making processes, all while having the clarity to do so, these two men were able to not only succeed in their respective professions, but were able to create something that would both have and leave an impact greater than what even they would have expected. However, make no mistake about it, things could have and would have turned out quite different for these two men, Michael and Jay, had they not understood this fundamental piece of wisdom and instruction right here. And that is, when I was a child, I did childish things, But when I became a man, all childish things have been put away. I.e., you grow the fuck up. And being able to recognize these things and make pivotal decisions and timely decisions, you are therefore able to weed out all of the hindering crap that keeps you from being able to scale and move on to, higher states or higher planes in life overall, especially as it relates to manhood, which is exactly why, or the main reason for this conversation in this manner in the first place, because many of us don't do what's necessary to not only secure our quote-unquote financial future and or legacy, which most certainly plays its role in the level of importance, but we don't even take the time to understand ourselves enough to know what things we need to do on an individual level, the adjustments we need to make in order for us to get to the next level or to get the best out of ourselves and situation that life has presented us with. And just to revert back a little bit, why have these two men been able to exceed and excel in the manner that they have and to such heights is because they have stayed focused on the fundamentals and have not reverted back like silly ass little children reverting back to childhood ways in elementary school or some sort of thing like that. They have stayed focused on the task at hand, which is evolving themselves economically, financially, socially, etc. They have stayed focused on these things that have helped them both build and grow to the capacity or to the level, in the capacity and to the level that they have. Whether you like everything about them or whether you agree with everything that they do and or say, that's irrelevant, because at the end of the day, the test is proven with what you see them having accomplished and how you see them carry themselves pretty much in the grand scheme of things. And this cannot be denied, it cannot be knocked. I pretty much myself, I salute it because I respect it. I respect what I see, I respect what I understand, and I see myself in these two gentlemen as well because of the nature in which they carry themselves and the nature in which they move about and handle their business as men. And the main reason that stems from what I believe to be our lack of an ability to do the main thing that I've stated previously, which is to put away childish things and to grow the hell up in every aspect of that which pertains to our manhood, which includes but is certainly not limited to evolving, maturing, and the developing in one's own mindset, the ability to properly articulate oneself in an effective manner that produces desired results, and the carrying of oneself in both appearance and behavior worthy of respect. And like I see on so many occasions with grown-ass men, which is sad, like toddlers and grade school children, we both focus and behave, or behave and focus way too much. We get carried away with and caught up into the emotional hoopla of things as it relates to people or other things, as opposed to looking at the things that support these things and or people, what or who they are, the dynamics that drive such, and seeing what can be taken away from that situation and thus use to our advantage so that we can in turn build and thrive the way we're designed to as men. But instead, we're so focused like the raccoon on the shiny object. We don't see the bigger picture. We're unable to expand the lens, so to speak, because we're so zoomed in and focused on that one little thing, and you end up getting your head cut off in the process. All in all, we've been reduced from a state of real and authentic men and role models to idol worship and idol worshiping groupies like individuals, or groupie like individuals with no kind of solid foundation whatsoever. Instead of having our attention placed on building ourselves up based on the fundamentals, we're looking to play games, be it video or any other type that pulls our attention away from our responsibilities. And not that there's anything wrong with that in regards to playing games and enjoying ourselves. It just has its place in the overall grand scheme of things and should never have a greater value assigned to it above that which pertains and is critical to our development as men, which must include, as I state once again for those that were unclear the first time, but not limited to, integrity, proper decision making, critical thinking, and coping skills, as well as the ability to read the pulse of one's own life and circumstances and the things going on around us in order to both understand and know what adjustments we need to make as individuals, and even more important, when we need to make them. Instead, as I mentioned before, we invest too much of our much needed energy, time, and resources being stuck in what I like to call the Peter Pan state, the state of perpetual boyhood that not only refuses to grow up, but is unable to produce anything of any sort of significant importance, likened unto the two gentlemen that I mentioned earlier, both Michael and Jay. And you can see it all around us in almost every facet of society, both aiding and abetting us along the way. We seem to find ourselves in this childlike state, forever playing games in a way, shape, or form, be it video and any other, which serves as sort of a distraction to us and tends to pigeonhole us in a manner that prevents us from fully developing within the scope of our full potential. Is there anything wrong with men having a skill within the realm of these particular avenues, such as sports, entertainment, and the like, that display their gifts and talents and ultimately earn them a good living? The answer to that is no. Nor is there anything wrong with the concept of leisure, be it solo or amongst others, hobbies, etc., that allow you to get away from it all and both enjoy yourself and level on one level or another to clear your head. But what happens in our society today is we get stuck in these phases to our own detriment a lot of time, and fail to realize the short and long-term effects it has on us and the things around us. We fail to develop in the most crucial and important areas of our manhood, which include the full and ongoing development of our mental faculties, as opposed to behaving like like Neanderthals with no type of higher consciousness or higher conscious capabilities or reasoning and resolution, respect, pride, dignity, leadership, as well as critical thinking skills, just to name a few, all of which aid in our approach to just about everything we do in life, and determine the level or types of outcomes we produce. And although we like to display the so-called image of manhood, which is nothing more than mere facades, very few of us are cut from the authentic cloth which manhood stems and builds itself. We choose weakness over strength, to be led as opposed to being the ones doing the leading, to lay down and ducking our heads in the sand when we need to be standing up, and making ourselves and our positions in life stands be known, if you understand where I'm coming from, which in turn causes a large-scale breakdown on and within our society, because as I've mentioned in previous material, when there are no real leaders, or so few, there's no real leadership. And when there's no leaders or no leadership, there's no fucking standards whatsoever. And when there's no standards, everything of value and importance that can be broken, torn down, and ultimately destroyed will. And thus society runs a fucking muck without anything to bridle these things or call them back. In order for us to even attempt to correct these errors, if even possible at this point, we've got to first recognize that a real fucking problem exists, has been grossly ignored and must be addressed without question. The first issue I've stated earlier is the insatiable need to remain in a state of boyhood as opposed to growing the hell up. For there are a great deal of gimmicks, circus clowns, and acts that have taken the place of real and fundamentally sound men that can affect necessary change and outcomes. Always overly charged with emotion and no damn common sense or discernment that guides both choices and actions thereof, which are the real proof and testament to your manhood. For any fucking fool can act, overreact, or not have the fortitude to act at all, which seems to be the case for many of us based on the level of support and encouragement we receive we seem to remain in our current status or current state of destructive nature. Now, you have those that either overdo it in this category by being filled with a little too much pride, which leads to arrogance and a great deal of decisions that turn out not to be in our favor, and then those that have not enough, lacking drive, get up and go about themselves to thus bring about the best version of themselves, which is what we as men are supposed to be doing or designed to do in the first place. Men are designed to go out after things, compete, be bold, and willing to go out on a limb and risk whatever they have, be it within or without, to operate in a certain mode of strength, and not all of this crybaby ass weakness which we've been accustomed to doing in order to obtain not only what they want but need as well, and move the needle of society as a whole forward. And pretty much for the most part not stall the damn thing out, or worse, push it backwards into a state of non-progression. And third and lastly, we're supposed to be taking our rightful places as natural born leaders within our own right, with the ability to lead, guide, teach, propel, prepare, and build up other men, thus assisting them along the way on into their rightful places as well. Unlike that which we've been reduced to, which we're not supposed to be followers of anything or anyone except those things which help us in the manner that allows us to do all things I just mentioned aforehand, taking only direction which stems from soundness of mind and principles, stable pillars, so to speak, as opposed to blowing every which a damn way like a leaf in the wind, being taken wherever it so chooses, and not being able to set or determine your own course of direction as best suited for you. And instead, like a bunch of mentally underdeveloped children, we're just following along and doing as we're told, much to our own detriment once again, as opposed to using our own decision-making processes to our own benefit, or much to our benefit. Too busy being amazed and enamored by worshiping that which we're supposed to be in control of and leading and having authority over, which is within its proper perspective, of course. And thus, like toddlers, taking our attention off the things that need be seen and gazed upon with specific intent, only to focus on things that are of no subsequent value or importance. But of course, you can't tell us that, though, because we're so big, bad, smart, and know every damn thing. Thus, nothing is under the sun new to us, so therefore we have nothing new to learn in our own opinion. And unfortunately, it's going to be the same pride, arrogance, and all-out cockiness that will serve as our own undoing, and it will be upon no other except ourselves. For that, I can damn near promise you. Always chasing behind something in order to consider ourselves brave, always talking and acting tough with each other, but never brave enough to stand up to the real and true enemy from both within and without. And please believe me when I tell you that they do exist on both sides of the fucking spectrum or fence, within the city walls as well as the gate, trying to get in by any means necessary, and at some point they will. And the sad part is we don't even recognize it or them. And as stated earlier, having the attention span of a toddler, we're not focused on the things we should be as necessary, which causes the most fundamentally sacred of things that serve as the nation's fiber to be broken down and deteriorate like an eroding shoreline by waves of the ocean and its constant onslaught against it. For you yourselves are not built and or prepared for anything of real consequence, in all honesty, and it shows not only by your actions, but in your clear or sheer incapability of producing any type of prodigy, prototype, and or successor. For you yourselves are not built and or prepared for anything of real consequence, and it shows not only by your actions, but in your clear incapability of producing any type of prodigy, prototype, and or successor that could serve as or take the reins of that which was solidly built and carry on forth without missing a fucking beat. And I mean sons, daughters, and of those in line of general succession to that which we currently have in place, regardless to whether they are physical or biological children or not, as such as teachers raising up students, professors, i.e., etc. All of these people are in leadership positions teaching the next generation, and it's also evident and clear with those who would succeed because of the nature by which you see their actions carried out and the most devastating and undeniable results thereof. And because we've been too busy and or preoccupied with either and or more important things that have ultimately served as no real or substantial purpose other than to pull you back and further away from those actions that would otherwise build up not only us but also everything and everyone else as well, because of the order and stability it would create with everything else in relation to us. For any real men with any real sense of value, backed by any real understanding, would both know and keep at the forefront of their minds that you only reap, or that you reap only that which you sow, nothing more, nothing less, be it your own life, culture, society, etc., and that you will never get out of a thing that which you did not put in. Thus, the results of what we now see are justified in every single way. For when as men you've chosen, i.e. chosen to abandon your ship, so to speak, and natural role on so many levels, you cannot bitch or complain about the results you now see and have, because you did it and or allowed it to be done by your lack of proper action. So all in all, our state of existence, being, current and future conditions, are all predicated upon decisions, those made or the lack thereof, and as a result has cost us a great deal that may not be able to be recouped or restored back to its proper and natural order. And as I always state in most of my salutations, there's no one to blame except yourselves. So with that being spoken, or that being said, thank you guys for tuning in again to the Sober Thinkers channel. My name is Michael, and of course, in all you do, remember to think wisely, think positively, and most importantly, think soberly. Thank you. Until next.